Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Welcome to the Managing Your Data in the Cloud webinar. Before we begin, please know that you are muted. If you have any questions, we ask you to submit them in the Q&A portal that's located on the bottom right of your screen. Our speakers will answer any questions you might have at the end of the presentation. And all attendees will receive a recording of this morning's webinar. Today's speakers are Kevin Leahy, he is Aspire's Data Center Practice Director, and James Walker, he is the Cisco Alliance Director for Cohesity. Kevin, take it away.
Great, thank you, and James, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
What we want to talk about today is really how do you rethink the whole notion of data storage compliance. While the title of the event is the data management in the cloud, it's really a broader topic. And ourselves at Aspire, plus our sponsor Cisco and Cohesity, work together on many clients to help resolve this problem. And it's something that we think is really changing the game in many ways. In the past, data management, when you talk to clients, they were really talking about storage management plus some optimization of a database. It wasn't truly a data story. It was really just those tasks and so they managed where the data sat. Now, as data grows, they start to address that just by doing better efficiency on individual storage silos. So you might put your unstructured data one place, you might put your databases at a different place, you might have your file data in yet another place. And so they got really good at those levels of efficiency. And important to recognize is that backup and compliance and all those other important tasks were separate roles or separate organizations. And so you had these silos of roles as well as silos of information. But as you fast forward to today, you can look at any analyst report or any study, and the data that's coming from the edge, the IoT, if you will, and for the devices, is orders of magnitude more than is coming from the traditional sources like databases and transactional records. And the expansion of where those reside into the cloud, multiple clouds, multiple devices, makes this notion of siloed approaches, unscalable. And quite honestly, it limits your flexibility because there's many storage options just within any individual cloud based on speed and performance and I/O rates and all the things that you can choose. But traditional methods of management didn't allow you to take advantage of them. It assumed the data sat one place, was for the life of the data, and then was backed up or archived. Now, the other thing, of course, is the data value itself. Meaning getting access to it is more important because you're looking for that business value. But with value comes increased threat. And so there's increasing levels of attacks, and we certainly all know the headlines around ransomware. This means that things have to change. Your approach has to change. And so how do you start to do that? Well, first recognize that data defines your brand. And it should define your IT architecture. In the past, when you started a data center planning exercise, you would say, well, how many processors are going to be there? How hot will they be? How much performance do I need within those CPUs? And you would start to define your whole environment around compute. Today, you start quite the opposite. You look at what data needs to reside where, and then how will I define that environment? Second thing that everyone needs to recognize is the cloud is going to hold the majority of your data over time. That's including, archival, including all those backup copies, air gaps, things like that. More and more is going to be residing in the cloud, and that's going to continue in that pattern. And you have to start with that assumption because as you build your designs and your processes, you need to understand that's the inevitable path. And so how do you accommodate that in the most effective way? Now, of course, you don't want lock-in. You didn't want lock-in to a single vendor device before. You don't want lock-in to a single cloud. So you want to make sure that you design your policies and your processes with infrastructure independence. And if done well, that infrastructure independence allows you the on-premise options as well as any of the major cloud options. Now, key here, of course, is cloud started as self-service. That's fantastic. Compliance should not be. You should definitely not, make this an option for folks. And so the notion of if you give people all the capability around self-service, you have to create that enforcement. You have to create the rules and policies that follow the data, so that you are always in that compliant situation and your data will always be protected. Also, you need to think about the future value of data. We're just tapping the surface here on what's the ultimate potential. And more clients, as we work with them, are starting to realize, I don't want to just put this out to tape because I may want to come back and look at this data later. If you're in healthcare, a new study may come up that will start to indicate a predictive model, and you want to go back and revisit perhaps all of your patient records to see if they're susceptible to it. Or you may want to be able to look against all of that earlier data to start to see if a new trend actually occurred, against your patient profiles. So you can actually pull that data back and start to do analytics around it. So the future value of data, we can only start to think about and predict. There's still more to be learned there. And so as you protect that data, part of this is making sure you give yourself all of that flexibility. There are a lot of cases, in the past where people would say, I just keep everything, but everything is a lot. So keeping everything in where it belongs is an important part of the conversation. Protection has to be part of that process. Again, you cannot assume you're behind a firewall, it's all protected. The data spans the edge, it spans the clouds, it spans your on-premise data center, and your protection rules and policies have to follow the data. It can't be assumed that some individual is going to know those rules and follow them. In fact, if an individual is involved, you can be pretty sure either they're a bad actor or they're going to make a mistake just on their own. But either way, your rules fall apart very quickly. And then think about emerging needs. We don't see this too much yet here in the United States, GDPR, but right to privacy and right to be forgotten certainly is emerging in California. And that notion of being able to find data relative to a person and get rid of it is going to become a requirement. And anywhere you have patient records or, client social security numbers, all those things are going to start to need to be found and to be able to be removed. Or the future value of analytics. How do you start to, mine those patterns without incurring additional cost? Now, all of this means you can't start with a collection of tools. All this means what you really need to start to think about is, how do I look at this as a platform, if you will, a data layer that builds into my architecture so that I can actually start to have this flexibility, and the infrastructure where the storage happens to sit is a detail. The enforcement happens at that data layer. And with that, I think it was a great time for me to turn over the forum to Jim from Cohesity, because I think that's one of our key partners in this journey is Cohesity with our Cisco partner as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. If you don't mind moving forward. Yeah, so thanks for having us. Yeah, I think what I'd like to do, for those of you not familiar with Cohesity, is just very quickly talk about who we are, what we do, what we solve for, as well as kind of the relationship between ourselves and Cisco and Aspire, and really today focus on the business value of the solutions we jointly bring to market. And then this is part one of a two-part session, where the second part in a couple of weeks will focus on sort of the technical underpinnings of what we discussed today in terms of our joint solutions, as I said. So what I want to start is just to contextualize a little bit. Companies for decades really have suffered from what I like to call accidental architectures, where point solutions and silos of infrastructure and applications, they've caused all kinds of management headaches, really, right, and cost and control problems, as well as risk, and Kevin just alluded to that. So to his point, one of the responses that we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years has been the adoption of platforms, right, and standards for various domains. We see that in the realm of ERP, application modules. It could be databases. It could be application integration platforms, virtualization network. I won't name them all, but more recently, again to Kevin's point in the concepts of cloud, right? So what the platforms bring, they really sort of address those challenges of accidental architecture because they enable consolidation and they enable simplification and automation of tasks and workflows and also centralizing skills and knowledge within customer environments. So, but what most customers and most companies haven't yet moved to is really a data management platform. And that's really the value, the business value that we bring to the market. And that's what I want to talk about for a little bit here. So very simply put, our mission is to radically simplify our organizations, manage the data, and as importantly, if not more importantly, gain business value from that data. We bring all the benefits of a platform to that, right? The ability to consolidate silos, as I talked about, and software-defined functions, modularity, and all of the other benefits that I just sort of mentioned. So what enables us to deliver that is an architecture that really mirrors what you see with Google, right? If you think about Google, its underpinnings is a web scale file system which has, simple global management interface on which applications and services can be accessed, right? Similarly, but rather than with consumer data, Cohesity manages enterprise data, and instead of services like, Google Docs or video or search, those types of things, we consolidate onto our web scale file system native capabilities like storage protocols, compression, deduplication, tiering, all of those types of things, as well as applications for things like data protection or cybersecurity analytics and copy data management. So the platform itself enables multiple use cases supported by a single file system, if that makes sense.
So, question for you, Jim. I mean, this sounds great, but the word application might be, a little bit misunderstanding because it doesn't sound like you're talking about business applications. Sounds to me like you're talking about IT operation applications. Perhaps a little clarity on that, because you're not asking people to rewrite their business apps, are you?
No, not at all. That's not the intent here. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really applications like data protection or analytics applications that can be run against the platform, antivirus applications, those types of, and business operations applications. Absolutely, that's the case.
Excellent.
Yeah. So consolidating data, consolidation, I guess, for enterprise data into a single platform means that you can eliminate those silos we talked about earlier, sort of like, storage or backups or file systems, dev test instances, those types of things. And all the management headaches, costs, and inefficiencies that go along with those silos. So what I mean is, instead of creating a copy of the data to perform additional operations, let's say test and dev, and copying that into a new compute silo, we flip it around and allow you to bring compute workloads to the data. And those, our goal there is to make data under management into a real asset for your business, right? And the key areas where that comes into play are, to your point, Kevin, about these applications, are things that enable you to bring greater security, compliance, and then to get business value via analytics and reporting from that data.
On the analytics, which is the holy grail of data, right? Do you see clients starting to do that? Does that move if you will, the theme here from the backup copy being a cost, which we've always struggled with how to reduce that cost for clients, to actually that backup copy starts to become a business asset?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once it on the platform, then, as I said, we can run against that data set applications such as we have native integration for Splunk, let's say. But certainly, analytics could be really about, analyzing data types or analyzing data access rates and those types of things and modification rates. So the analytics can take numerous forms, as you know. And so having that data in a single platform where you can perform actionable search against it, where you can run operations and analytics applications against it, you start deriving value from that data. So if it's backup data, as you referenced, Kevin, no longer is it just an insurance policy. It becomes a real repository and a real source of business value.
The other one that catches my eye is data masking. It used to be quite an expensive thing to mask that data so you can move it from one location to another, either from the edge to the data center or to the cloud, while enforcing the privacy rules by masking. That used to be an expensive thing. So I see that as one of the applications here. Is that something you're seeing clients take advantage of?
Yes, and it's a new capability, relatively new capability for Cohesity. And it's definitely helping with things like compliance, of course. And really the flip side of that is that backup data historically has been a potential vulnerability from a compliance and security perspective. So now having the ability to identify the data types and then where necessary apply masking capabilities to that data, it definitely shores up your security posture and ensures compliance.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, I want to just start to talk a little bit about the Cisco relationship here, and I'll go into a little bit further detail in a couple of future slides. But I just want everybody to know that Kevin mentioned this is not just in the context of cloud. We're talking about edge. We're talking about core data center, and we're talking about cloud from a deployment perspective. But in the data center, and at the edge, we can always leverage the best of breed server platform from Cisco, and we do so so we talked about the web scale file system, but we also run that file system on UCS best of breed servers in a hyper-converged infrastructure paradigm. And I'll expand a little bit more over time here. But what I want you to know is that the relationship with Cisco is not that of a software company that's certified on an x86 platform. Behind the relationship is a great deal of investment. There's joint innovation from an engineering perspective. We have joint go-to-market with our key partners like Aspire, and then joint operations. And I'll expand on those as we move forward. So this really talks about the why from a Cisco perspective. So if you look at that kind of graphic on the left-hand side of your screen, we're talking about how Cohesity and Cisco from their primary hyper-converged infrastructure of Hyperflex, in conjunction with Cohesity, that we can address a whole slew of comprehensive use cases within customer environments, right? From general virtualized workloads right through to robo, edge, cloud, data protection, file services, archive and dev test, copy data management, and analytics that we've already alluded to. And then,
so to our business audience, then, that this is really says that we have the portfolio, and as Aspire, we've been very successful in working with several clients, bringing this combination of Cohesity plus the Cisco compute portfolio into that client environment. The speed of the Cisco hardware along with the file system from Cohesity actually does deliver a great platform.
That's absolutely the case, and so what we do is and I will not get into technical detail, but we have this concept of, think of it as a reference architecture. If I want to use the analogy of a building plan, right? So that in the context of data management, we jointly publish what's called a CVD, which is a Cisco validated design, whereby we validate and certify the data protection and the data management with the various use cases that I've already highlighted together, and when we can deliver those services in the core data center, at the edge, in robo or IoT type scenarios, as well as in the cloud, and we certify with multiple cloud providers, as you can see there. So all of the capabilities, the use cases, and I've mentioned them already: data protection, file and object storage, dev test, analytics, and so forth. They're all available in each one of those domains. So across remote and edge, in the core data center, and within the cloud.
Now, what we have a well-recognized IoT practice here at Aspire, things like smart cities, smart roadways, and we're seeing the accumulation of data that we're coming in from the edge, where clients are looking for help in lifecycle managing that data through that continuum as they move it to and from. Are you seeing that sort of that growth cases, or is this really more of an emergent role from what you see, or are you starting to see the IoT data become a forefront in terms of the decisions and the client's data, platform choices?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an evolution in that space, where we were maybe deployed virtually to do kind of remote office, back office type operations for data protection or for file services, for example. More and more, we're as you said earlier, Kevin, the edge is the generator of a predominance of data. So we're starting to see use cases like smart meters, various devices, right? Store data and so forth. That where at these edges, invaluable data is being managed and generated, and and we're able to deliver the same service level at the edge as we are in the core data center from that perspective. So thank you. And then at the core of Cisco's strategy in the data center. So this slide here really just speaks to kind of the underpinnings of the interrelationship between Cohesity and Cisco. But I want to address one element of it more than any other here, and that is at the core of Cisco's strategy and its capabilities in the data center is a product called Insight, which is essentially a manager of managers, right? It enables customers to centrally provision, manage, monitor, report, do capacity planning, et cetera, and a big portion of our current engagement with Cisco from an innovation standpoint is integrating our management interface into that platform. So jointly now, Cohesity can become an integral component of a centrally managed data center. So it's kind of knocking the walls down between those silos to an even greater degree. And so what will allow is automated deployment of UCS and Cohesity, as I said, monitoring, provisioning, backup of HyperFlex from Insight, and then maintenance and ongoing lifecycle capabilities. So that's a real key innovation that's happening, and it happens in the context of a business relationship where, as I said, we have these validated designs on the one hand, we have many of them in flight, to the fact that Cisco will support our joint solutions singularly, and that from a customer perspective, everything is procured through Cisco as well. So
I love the concept of radically simplified data with Cohesity as a SaaS service that gives you that continual innovation, and the radically simplified infrastructure management through Cisco Insight with that same rapid evolution of new features and functions. So to know that those two are integrating together, it's got to drive a lot of business value.
Absolutely. And just the last slide that I wanted to just bring to you folks is, it's easy for us to talk about these generic terms in terms of our value of a platform, simplification, consolidation, efficiency, etc. But This was just recently released, which was a Forrester study that addressed the total economic impact of Cohesity and Cisco. And, you know, there are some very powerful metrics in here. I won't patronize you by reading them all to you, but, you know, to have the kind of empirical numbers and metrics to support the, you know, what it is that we have been claiming all along, if you will, is really powerful. So Forrester's just released this in the last week. It's really providing a great deal of validation of the types of benefits, business benefits that our customers get from moving to a data management platform on Cisco, rather than operating in the siloed, complex, and inefficient ways that have historically been the case.
So they get this operation saving, and that unlocks the business value element, which isn't even factored in here, of course, which is the value of now that you can exploit that data, which is really, you know, way different than just the operational benefits, because the value of the data is really back to that defining your brand. And so,
Absolutely.
you know, for clients, our advice, you know, first step is really understand that data landscape. You've got to look at all of your data from the edge to the cloud data centers, as well as what data are you interacting with other SaaS providers in your ecosystem that are part of your solution. Understand those values and assess your current protection and access requirements. You know, it's anything can run in the cloud today. It's no longer a question of can it run in the cloud. Will it run best in the cloud relative to where you need to access it, where the data is being generated, where it needs to be lifecycle managed. Define policies. You cannot, you know, make it where you need to be if it's static. And you can't count on people across that entire environment at the rate and pace of change in our industry. So you have to be able to define those policies, and you must be able to automate. As I said, self-service does not mean you should be, you know, self-service for compliance. You've got to be able to demonstrate it. You have to be able to audit it, and a platform allows you to do that. You have to secure and protect it, and of course, Aspire with our managed security services can certainly help there as well. But in the end, as we talked about with the Forrester slide, you know, what you have to be able to do is unlock the value of the data for your business. And you have to be able to use that to really differentiate your digital brand as you move forward. So we're at the bottom of the hour, and I want to recognize everyone's time and appreciate their attendance. If you did not get a chance to ask a question but would like to, please contact us. We'd love to continue the conversation with you and help you really make that next step into your getting that value of data across your cloud and your on-premise, and really turning that to your business value. Thank you again, and thank you, Jim, for participating.
Thank you.